So today I'm going to teach you the final lesson, which is day 5 in our review for chapter 1 and 2, and this will help us for our quiz that we have tomorrow. If you would please, I want you to flip over to day 5 and go ahead, use your red pen and fill in this top section for me, please. Okay, so these are some important things that we learned way back at chapter 2. Okay, I think this was 2.4. You need to remember you do not ever have to find a common denominator whenever you're multiplying and dividing fractions. That is only when we add and subtract. Next up, it says you cannot, I repeat, you are not allowed to multiply mixed numbers. What does it tell us that you have to do first? You have to make them improper first. And finally, read me what the last thing is that you just wrote down. Okay, so if it starts as a mixed number, it needs to end as a mixed number. So looking at this one, find the product and write the fractions in simplest form. Do I need to have a common denominator? No. Is there anything here that you can see that we can cross-reduce? No. Cross-reducing is only for multiplying, okay? You cannot do it with adding, subtracting, or dividing. Since there is nothing that we can cross-reduce, instead we're just going to multiply across the top. Guys, what's 1 times 3? 3. Then we have to multiply across the bottom. What's 5 times 8? 40. Is there anything that I can reduce there? No. So the final answer is just 3/40. Okay, let's go on to problem B. I have a regular fraction multiplied by a mixed number. What do I have to do first? Change it to an improper fraction. So we're going to have that negative third and multiplied by, what would negative 2 3/4 be as an improper fraction?
11 over 4.
Very good. And we got to keep that negative, so it's negative 11 over 4. Michaela, is there anything I can cross-reduce? No, there is not. So we're just going to multiply across the top. Now help me with this idea, guys. Is this answer going to be positive or negative? There are 2 negatives, so my answer has to be positive, okay? Because remember the rules, if you have an even amount of negative signs, your answer has to be positive. Multiply across the top. Reagan, what do you get? 11, and then the bottom number he knew was 12. So the correct answer is 11/12. All right, so that's how you are going to multiply whenever you have fractions. Now we're going to have decimals. Should I line up the decimals when I'm multiplying?
Yes.
No, you never line up the decimals. In this case, these ones are going to both line up, but normally you don't need to line up the decimals, okay? So 2.5 times 3.6. Help me out. Is this answer going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
It is going to be negative, all right? Now, let's just look at this. How many times did the decimal point move over from the right to get right there? It moved over 1 time, okay? How about the next one, 3.6? It moved over 1 time. Add those 2 together. 2, so that means we're going to have to move the decimal point of our final answer over 2 times. Let's multiply both of these times that 6. 5 times 6? 30. 0 on the bottom, 3 on the top. 2 times 6?
12.
Plus 3?
15.
Abigail, do the next part for me, please.
3 times 5 is 15.
Okay, so we're going to first put a 0 as a placeholder, right? And then we'll multiply 3 times 5, which you said is?
15.
Okay, 5 on bottom, 1 on top.
And then 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7.
Excellent. Okay, let's add those together. Ellie, when you add them together, what do you get?
90.
Not 90. Halen?
You want to say which decimal?
Just adding it together. 900, okay? And now with the decimal, what do we do?
Move it 2 times to the left.
2 times to the left. So what's the answer?
I'm going to 9.
Okay, negative 9. Any questions on that one? Okay, let's go to the next one. Once again, do I need to line up the decimal points? No, when you're multiplying, we do not line up the decimal points, okay? Let's talk about how many places we moved the decimal point over. Luke, how many times did we move it over on point 51? 2 times, very good. How about 1.8?
1.
Just 1 time. Add those together. Madison, what do you get? 2 plus 1? 3. Okay, so we know in the end we're going to be moving that decimal point over 3 times. Nasir, do it for me, please. We're going to first multiply times that 8. What's 1 times 8?
8.
Keep going. 5 times 8 is 40. Okay, now put a 0 as a placeholder, and then we're going to multiply it times the 1. Nasir, keep going.
That'll be 1. And 1 plus 1 is
1 times, okay, and then 1 times 5.
5.
Very good. Now we're going to add those numbers together. Nasir, when you do that, what do you get?
918.
918. How many times should I move the decimal point over?
3 times.
3 times. And is this answer going to be positive or negative?
Positive.
It is going to be positive because we multiplied 2 negative numbers together. So the answer is 0.918. Any questions on how we did that? All right. Moving on. Next up it says find the quotient. If you remember from long ago, I taught you you are not allowed to divide fractions. What method do we have to use?
KFC.
Take your red pen and I want you to write this down. KFC right there somewhere near that idea. All right, so with KFC, we keep the first one, we flip the, and then we change the. Okay, remember with multiplying, this is the only time that we're allowed to cross-reduce. Jonathan, is there anything to cross-reduce? 9 and 3, what do they become? A 3 and a 1. Multiply them across. Class, what do you get when you multiply it across? 5, 6 is correct. Okay, I want you guys to do the next one on your own and stand once you've got it. Okay, as I just walked around, I saw some correct answers, but some other answers were incorrect. Looking at problem B, is my answer going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
Some people just put it as a positive. Be careful. Always look for that sign first. KFC, keep the,
First.
flip the.
Second.
Okay, so this becomes negative 3/4 and change the.
Operation.
Now, I had some people that just multiplied straight across. When they did that, they got 6 times 3 is 18. And then they multiplied the denominators and they found that 5 times 4 is 20. They knew the answer was negative and they said that this was their answer. That is not the answer. Why is that not the answer?
You got so far back.
You have to simplify it, okay? So if you wanted to do it that way, you would know, oh, I've got to divide by 2 on top and 2 on bottom, and what do you get? Negative 9/10. Or you could have started over here to start with and crossed out. What number can go into a 4 that can also go into a 6? A 2. It goes into this 2 times. It goes into this. Oop. Okay, so sorry about that. How many times can the 2 go into that 6, guys? 3 times. Okay, so now if I just multiplied this across, 3 times 3 is 9. And then the denominator, 5 times 2 is 10. So then you would know it was 9/10 and the answer was negative. Okay, so it doesn't matter to me which way you do it, but you do have to make sure in the end you always reduce. All right, for the last page today, it asks us to write the decimal as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. Let's think about the 2. What place is that 2 in on problem A? The tenths. What place is the 6 in? The hundredths. So that helps us to know and understand this means negative 26 hundredths. Can that be reduced? Yes. What number goes into a 26 that also goes into a 100?
25.
A 2, okay? Because they're both even numbers, you can divide by 2 on top and bottom. If you divide by 2 on top and bottom, what do you get?
1350.
Okay, and is the answer positive or negative?
Negative.
It is negative. Once again, if it starts as a negative decimal, it has to be a negative fraction. Does that make sense? Okay, let's look at the next one, negative 10.25. What's the whole number on negative 10.25? 10, okay, or negative 10. So, just for a heads up, if you are like, I don't really understand this section, it's in 2.3. So with your red pen off to the side, Just write 2.3. You can go back to our YouTube channel. You could go back to our Google Classroom and re-listen to this lesson, and it gives a more detailed picture of how to do these 4 problems that we're doing right now, okay? So as we said before, negative 10 is our whole number. So I'm going to bring down that negative 10. 0.25 is our decimal. So looking at 0.25, what place is the 0.25 in?
Hundreds.
The hundredths. So that means 25 hundredths. I want you to go ahead and reduce that for me, because remember, from now until the end of your math career, you need to make sure you reduce. Guys, what number can go into a 25 that also goes into a 100?
25.
A 25, very good. Once again, I think of it like quarters, okay? So divide the top by 25, and then divide the bottom by 25. When you do that, what does the fraction become? 1/4, okay? So something that you could have memorized, 0.25 always equals 1/4. So now, the whole number was what? Negative 10. And then the fraction, or 0.25, is now what? So the correct answer is? Negative 10 and a fourth. I want you guys to go and do C and D with your partner. All right, let's see how you guys did on problem C. Guys, what place is the 1 in? Tenths. The 2? Hundredths. The 5? The thousandths. So this means 125 over 1,000. How many of you would say that's how you got your, at least you started that way? Now, that can be reduced. A lot of people I saw, you knew that a 5 can go into both of those because it ends with a 5 and a 0. But there's something bigger than a 5 that can go into that. A 25, okay? A 25 could go into both of those, but there is actually something bigger than a 25.
100. 50. 75. 125.
Here's what I say. My tip to you is I typically start with the numerator. Guys, what's the numerator? 125. So I am going to try dividing it. Okay, 125 divided by 125 is 1. Now, 1,000 divided by 125. Think about it. 125 is simpler, or it's close to 100. How many times can a 100 go into 1,000? 10. Now we know 125 cannot go in 10 times. So what's a better guess?
8.
Okay, an 8 or a 9. We'll start with an 8. 8 times 5 is?
40.
0 on bottom, 4 on top. Okay, 8 times 2 is 16 plus 4? 20. 0 on bottom, 2 on top. 8 times 1?
8.
Plus 2?
10.
10. So the correct answer is 1/8. Now here's another thing. How we talked about memorizing some of those fractions and decimals. 0.125 from now until the end of your life will always equal 1/8. So that is a smart one of those things to just simply have memorized. Let's look at the last one. Guys, what's the whole number at 3.1? 3. Okay, so I'm just going to drop down the 3. What place is the 0.1 in? Tenths. So I could say that is 1/10. Can anything be reduced or simplified? No. So what's the answer? 3 and 1/10. How many of you would say you got that one correct? All right, excellent. Now, all of these things that we just talked about are going to be on your quiz tomorrow, which is a review over days 1 through day 5.